right, I'm Romm with Modo Studios, and we have a very special guest in with us today, and this is Alta from the Utah Rivers Council. Alta, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. It's raining, which is a good thing for Utah right now.
Yeah.
So I'm doing good.
It's the more rain that felt like we got all winter, but,
Yeah.
you know. Well, great. Glad to have you here. Welcome to our podcast studio.
I'm super excited to be here.
Well, sweet. Well, tell us a little bit about the Utah Rivers Council. How did it get started? A little bit of the history.
Yeah. So Utah Rivers Council is an advocacy organization. We were founded in 1994 to protect Utah's rivers, and we still have the same mission today. We fight to conserve Utah's rivers and to keep water in our rivers. And we do that through a bunch of different things. We educate and we research. We have a bunch of publications that have decades of research behind them, including our 4200 project, which outlines 12 policy solutions that we are advocating for to be implemented at the Utah State House to bring relief to Utah's rivers and our declining Great Salt Lake. And we also grassroots organize, and so we try to bring Utahns into our movement to build collective power from the ground up, to put pressure on our lawmakers to make the changes we wish to see. And we also litigate. So right now we're actually suing the state of Utah for their failure to protect the Great Salt Lake under the public trust doctrine, and that's been a lot of fun. So.
Wow, I don't know if I'd ever use litigation and fun in the same sentence, but if it gets results, you know, that's what we're going for. It sounds like you guys do a lot.
For sure.
So yeah, I mean, what specifically do you do for the Utah Rivers Council? Like, what's your area of focus?
Yeah. So I started at Utah Rivers Council as like a social media intern.
Okay.
And now I am the community water organizer. And so I do a lot of public speaking, a lot of things like this, getting out to the public, meeting people, talking about our work, and trying to bring Utahns into the movement to, you know, kind of join our organization in this fight to conserve Utah's rivers. And so I also lobby. This last legislative session, I was up there meeting with legislators one-on-one, advocating for these policies that we're supporting. And so it's been a lot of fun to kind of like start in social media and grow into the role that I'm in now.
That's great. That's nice that you're able to like grow through the organization. What drew you to the Utah Rivers Council in the first place? Like, what made you want to be a social media intern?
Yeah, I'm a lifelong environmental advocate, and I'm also an 8th generation Utahn. So both sides of my family were Mormon pioneers, and so my family has endured in Utah for a really, really long time. And one of the biggest things that is limiting my ability to stay in northern Utah is this conversation about water and the accessibility of water and whether or not the Great Salt Lake is going to continue to exist. And so when I was at the University of Utah as a student, I noticed that the U was super wasteful with their water just on grass. And so that's kind of where this whole interest kind of sparked. And I went and worked for Utah Rivers Council because I felt like they were doing such amazing work around this specific issue of water. You know, Utah is the second driest state in the country, and we also have the highest per person municipal water use. And so just learning that alone, I was like, the best area for me to get into if I want to continue to live in Utah is water. And so that's kind of what drew me to Utah Rivers Council and applied for an internship there, and it's been the best decision I've ever made.
Good. That's what we need more of, right? We need people that are passionate about, you know, these sort of issues, and
Totally.
Not only their passion, but they're willing to put it into practice. They're willing to work for it, and I mean, you've clearly dedicated a good chunk of your life to it, and so I really respect that.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. Do you have a favorite body of water in Utah?
Great Salt Lake, of course.
All right.
I have to say Great Salt Lake. Great Salt Lake is so cool, and there's so many misconceptions around the Great Salt Lake. Even me growing up, I always kind of thought like that stinky thing out there is so desolate, it has no use, but I don't think a lot of people realize that the Great Salt Lake hosts 12 million migratory birds from all over the Western Hemisphere. Great Salt Lake represents 330 individual species of birds who stop at the Great Salt Lake season after season and have relied on it for thousands and thousands of years. It's like truly a Serengeti for birds. So if you're interested in going and visiting the Great Salt Lake, I would urge people to go out to the Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge. It's where the Bear River meets the Great Salt Lake, and it turns into this like huge cascading wetland ecosystem, and it's truly magical, especially in like spring migration when all the swans come in and the American avocets. It's seriously like unbelievable. It's really, really cool.
Definitely worth checking out.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's not that far of a drive either. It's like
No.
40 minutes maybe from Salt Lake.
Yeah. It's like 40 minutes from Salt Lake, probably like an hour from here, a little over an hour.
Cool.
Yeah, people need to get out there. It's really cool.
How long does that migratory period usually last? Like you said, it's during the spring, but like what's the best time to go?
I don't know if there's a best time to go because like spring, different birds come in, but then winter, like a lot of birds leave, but then that's when like the bald eagles come in. So like every single season, there's kind of like different bird species throughout the year.
Okay. Yeah. It's like worth checking out like throughout the year, not just like one and done. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Good answer. I don't see.
Do you have a favorite body of water?
Ooh. See, I love backpacking the Uintas. Like growing up, like I'd go on like scout backpacking trips and stuff, and we'd go like up around like Mirror Lake and Grande Lake and stuff. We'd be up there for like the full week, and so I just love like being up in the Uintas in a way, and really kind of relying on the lake for like a good food source, you know? Because when you're backpacking, you bring a bunch of freeze-dried stuff or a bunch of snacks or whatever, but if you want to eat anything like good, you gotta like fish out of the lake and stuff. And so that's really what we like to do, but like my scout leaders were always so great at telling us like you don't pollute the lake, you know? Like you have to take care of that because that's your source of drinking water, that's your source of everything, you know? And they really drilled it into like our heads, like everything you pack in, you pack out. Like, you know, you're not like doing a bunch of crap to like the river and stuff, like really just trying to leave things better than the way you found it. And so I don't know if I have like one lake in the Uintas is my favorite, but I just love the Uintas.
And there's a million lakes up in the Uintas.
Exactly. Yeah. How do you choose just one, which is a terrible answer because that just sounds like, oh, you don't actually have a favorite. But yeah, I just like the high Uintas and stuff. It just, I don't know. There's just something like magical about water in general. But
I agree.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned the Great Salt Lake. You mentioned, you know, it's one of the reasons living in northern Utah is like such like kind of a predicament for you. Mm-hmm. Explain a little bit more about that. Why is the Great Salt Lake so essential to northern Utah life?
Yeah. Oh my God. Great question. So the Great Salt Lake the Great Salt Lake is the last remaining wetland ecosystem in the American West. And so in that way, it's super important. But also underneath the Great Salt Lake is its lake bed. And the Great Salt Lake lake bed has been accumulating toxins for decades and decades and decades because the Great Salt Lake has no natural outflow. It receives its water through 3 main rivers, but it doesn't have any rivers that leave it. So it's only losing water through evaporation. And so like all the toxins that we put down our drains that get run off through our cities when it rains ends up in the Great Salt Lake. So it's been accumulating things like heavy metals, pesticides from agriculture, PFAs, which are forever chemicals, microplastics. And so as the Great Salt Lake dries up, that dust becomes exposed to the air, and when it gets windy, it picks up these toxins into our residential homes and can cause a whole host of respiratory illnesses and cancer. And so we know what happens when terminal saline lakes like the Great Salt Lake dries up. The Aral Sea in Uzbekistan dried up when the Soviet Union diverted its water for the use of cotton farming, and it displaced hundreds of thousands of people. Owens Lake in LA dried up, and to this day, LA has spent $2.5 billion in mitigating dust at that dried up Great Salt Lake.
Jeez.
And so whether or not like you care about the birds, like for our ability to stay in Utah, in northern Utah, and be healthy, we have to ensure that water stays in that lake. It's like absolutely crucial. And that's not even like mentioning like the secondary costs of, you know, healthcare costs, of, you know, all of the industry that relies on the Great Salt Lake, including brine shrimping and lake effect snow.
Yeah.
You know, our ski and tourism industries would face massive consequences. And so there's just like, it's like stacking issues of why we need to keep Great Salt Lake around. And there's a lot of people fighting to conserve the Great Salt Lake, which is awesome. But there's also interests that are fighting against saving the Great Salt Lake.
Yeah. It's interesting because a lot of people don't think about, like, they're like, oh, we got to save the birds, we got to save the brine shrimp, whatever it may be. They don't think about like the compounding stuff, like you mentioned, you know, like all the dust in the air, and that's going to get in your lungs, then you're going to have health issues and stuff, and which unfortunately it kind of takes people thinking about that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
or actually affecting them before they kind of awaken to
Yeah.
the situation. And by that time, it's, almost too late.
And that's the ringing question is like, can a society respond to a crisis before the full impacts of that crisis are felt? And that's a question I am constantly exploring. I actually wrote my undergraduate honors thesis exploring risk. I got my degree in sociology, and so I'm really interested in social movements and how we can bring communities together to combat shared issues. And, a lot of sociologists run into that question of like, okay, when people feel the risk, we can respond to it, but people have a hard time reorienting their behaviors before the full impacts of that risk are felt. So it's a big part of what we're trying to do at Utah Rivers Council is kind of like sound the alarm bell while also not like demoralizing people into feeling like it's too big of an issue to solve, because we absolutely can solve the Great Salt Lake. We just have to have hope, and we also have to have strategy and action.
I mean, that makes sense. And that's a fine line to walk, like sounding the alarm bell, but like, it's like, hey, we need to do something about it, but it's not too late. Like, we can still save things. So
absolutely,
it's a fine little tightrope. I mean, you gotta love those sociology type questions, right? Like, how can we activate people to solve problems before they're unsolvable? I mean, what are some of the biggest things pulling water away from the Great Salt Lake right now?
Yeah, great question. So, like I said, there's 3 rivers feeding the Great Salt Lake, and we're taking water out of those rivers for human use. The vast majority of our water is going towards agriculture, a lot of alfalfa farming. A lot of Utahns, at least in my conversation with Utahns, like want to demonize alfalfa because it is using the majority of our water in the Great Salt Lake water basin. And then like statewide water consumption around 20% is going to municipal and industrial use. And of our municipal slice of the pie, 70% of that is going just towards outdoor watering. So like our lawns in Utah.
Oh, wow.
Take up a huge percentage of the water that we use in the municipal sector. But yeah, in terms of like agriculture, Utah is still relying on 19th century archaic water delivery systems where we're relying on gravity to move our water around. So like if I wanted a drop of this Red Bull, just one drop of this Red Bull to get to that side of the room, I would have to pour the entire bottle of the Red Bull like with some strength to get one drop over there. And so that's kind of how we're like pushing water around, is we rely on gravity to push our water around. So we need to use a lot more water than we actually need on our crops. This way. And so like one of the policies proposals we're proposing is to help give grants to farmers so they can update their irrigational efficiency and not have these 19th century archaic water delivery systems, update it, and then ensure that some of that saved water makes it to the lake. Right now, Utah is giving grants to farmers to do this, but 100% of the saved water we're saving in the Great Salt Lake water basin just gets to stay with the farmer. And so they can use that saved water to like expand crop yields or to split lease it to someone who wants to buy it, but it's not actually making it to the lake. And so this is like one of the common sense, policy solutions we're proposing, which is like if taxpayers are giving money to farmers, we should see a taxpayer benefit at the Great Salt Lake. But yeah, ag is using most of the water in the Great Salt Lake Basin.
Wow. That's kind of,
yeah.
That's crazy. Okay, so you mentioned working on policy proposal to like divert more resources toward farmers and stuff. That way they can upgrade their systems, they can upgrade their water delivery methods. What are some of the other policies that you're pushing? You said you were lobbying this year. What are some of the other water policies you've been lobbying for?
Yeah, totally. So one of them is, and I actually don't think a lot of Utahns know about this, is that rivers don't really have the legal right to exist at all in Utah.
What?
Yeah. Let me explain.
I was like, you got to expound on that.
So in Utah, if you have a water right in Utah, you have to use that water right. It's called use it or lose it. So if you don't use your water right to a beneficial use, you'll lose it after 7 years. And so you got to be using that on crops, you got to be using it for this or that, and that's outlined in water law. But a beneficial use isn't just keeping your water right to flow in a river. So the state's legal position, and we learned this in our lawsuit against them, is that their legal position is that they have the right to dry up every single river feeding the Great Salt Lake and effectively dry up the Great Salt Lake.
Wow.
And so in Utah right now, if you have a water right in the Great Salt Lake Basin, you'd be like, oh, let me just keep it in the river to flow to the Great Salt Lake because I'm not using this water right. You don't have the legal right to do that right now. The max you can keep your water right to remain in a river is 10 years. And then after that, it goes back on the market. So one of the policy proposals we're advocating for is to change that law so that people from the public can actually permanently, legally dedicate their water to remain in the rivers that feed the Great Salt Lake.
Okay.
To us, we have to change this policy if we want the free market to be able to save the Great Salt Lake. Because right now, like, we couldn't fundraise $1 billion and buy up all these water rights from farmers and dedicate them to the Great Salt Lake because we could only do that for a max of 10 years.
So you'd be basically dumping a bunch of money and effort into something that's only got, or it's got an expiration date.
Yeah, exactly.
That's baffling to me.
It's pretty crazy.
And it's crazy, like, the more you learn about this stuff, you're just kind of like, who thought this was a good idea?
Yeah, I mean, Mormon settlers, like people who came here originally, you know, they were facing different issues, but, you know, we're still relying on water law that was written in the 1800s. And I think there's a lot of issues there, but it's also kind of like this sacred piece of policy that is kind of hard to touch, but.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Government was designed to move slow, but sometimes it's a little too slow.
Exactly. It's like slow processes in democracy is good because we kind of have to be careful, you know, as we respond to these crises. And like our government is pretty risk averse, where it's like they don't want to like make a huge decision and then there'd be a million unintended consequences. But then like what we're facing at the Great Salt Lake, like it's rapidly declining. Like this is like happening now. We need to respond quickly. And how do we, you know, as an organization get the public to see that risk and also get the government to reorient and change some of these policies? It's a huge battle.
Yeah. I mean, luckily we've got people like you and the Utah Rivers Council that are, you know, not only trying to educate the public, but trying to educate, you know, the government as well. Because I assume that's like a big part of what you do when you're lobbying. You're helping them understand the urgency. What was that like, lobbying on the Hill?
Totally. You know, in Utah, our legislative session is only 45 days long. And legislators read upwards of 1,000 bills that get pushed through during this 45-day session. And like I could talk your ear off about water and the environment, but like if it comes to like public education and, you know, all of these other services that legislators are in charge of determining, that would be really hard. And so for them, it's just like super chaotic. And yeah, they don't know what they're voting on. And so that's why it's so important for the public to know who your Utah legislators are, who your Utah senator and representative are. Because you know more about certain topics than they do. You know, there's probably this much that they know, but you might know this much that they don't know. And so they need to hear from the public. And so me being up there was just like, educating legislators, meeting with them one-on-one and be like, hey, you didn't look at this, and this in your bill. Like, can we talk about that? And having mostly healthy debate with them up there. But, you know, there's a whole spectrum of legislators up there. There's a lot of well-intended and good legislators who are doing really good work, but there's also a lot of legislators who are hostile to dissenting voices. And so I consider myself an activist. Like I work for Utah Rivers Council, which is a nonprofit, but I do consider myself an environmental activist. And I think there's a lot of people up there who are pretty hostile to activism. But I think that healthy debate and dissent is an essential component of democracy. And so even when it is hard, it's still empowering and purposeful and fulfilling. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got to make your voice heard, right? I mean, it's your right as an American, as a citizen, and especially as like a constituent of, you know, either your senator, your representatives, whoever it may be. And I like that. It's something that probably more people should do, is make their voices heard. Because, you know, they're supposed to represent us and our interests and ideally our well-being and the well-being of the state as a whole. So
totally.
Yeah, it's hard though, because if you label someone as like an activist, and there's like a whole stigma, you know, it's like being like labeled a conspiracy theorist, something like that. There's like a whole bunch of baggage that comes with it that, you know, you could be totally like well-reasoned and well-meaning and stuff, and people are just like head in the sand, you know, like I don't want to listen to that. And so, which I'm sure you know.
Totally. Yeah.
Excuse me. Interesting. Have you found that a good portion of the state representatives and senators have been responsive to your message, or do you think there's been a lot of pushback?
It's a good question.
It's kind of a hard question.
It is a hard question. No, it's okay. Because there's just so many variables at play with water policy in Utah that, you know, go deeper than the intention or the goodness of an individual legislator. And so I think that they're receptive to saving the Great Salt Lake, obviously. Like, it's just such a common sense thing that we need to do as Utah that I would say that every single legislator will say that they care about saving the Great Salt Lake. I just don't think that they're doing enough fast enough. Like, I don't want to say, like, absolutely nothing has been done for the Great Salt Lake. Like, we've definitely taken steps, but we haven't taken big enough steps fast enough. And I think that's the aspect that a lot of legislators are pushing back on. But the energy's there. Yeah, okay. I think that there is some corruption that is going on in the Utah State House that needs to be fixed before we can save the Great Salt Lake forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair. Unfortunately, it kind of comes with
the
territory with politics.
Yeah, for sure.
That's good. I'm glad that like the momentum's there.
Yeah.
You know, and if you can just keep pushing that momentum, ride that wave, then hopefully we'll see some positive change sooner rather than later. But so you're currently litigating, like there's litigation against the state of Utah. Is that?
Yeah. There's like 3 state agencies that are technically who we're suing, but yeah, the state of Utah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell me about some, like, I mean, that's currently ongoing. Tell me about some like recent like wins, like either policy wins or like, you know, the Utah Rivers Council has had.
Yeah, totally. So we had a really cool big win last October during a special session. So sometimes the legislature will be like, we want to meet outside the 45 days, and they'll call a special session. And they had one last October, and one of the bills that they were proposing was to permanently give the state the authority to permanently close the causeway berm. So if you don't know the Great Salt Lake, it is actually bifurcated into 2. So like the top half is pink and the bottom half is like green and blue, because the north part of the Great Salt Lake doesn't receive any of that water inflow. So those 3 rivers that keep the Great Salt Lake full flow into the south arm, and then there's a railway causeway that cuts the lake in 2, and that fresh water only flows up to the north arm through like a small breach. And the state closes and opens that berm to like manage the salinity levels in the south arm. And so right now they can close that berm when the lake hits like a low record. And they were proposing to allow the state to be able to close that berm forever, because, you know, as we're struggling to find water for the Great Salt Lake, they want to shrink the lake into a smaller lake so that they have less of a hurdle to climb in delivering water. And so we were like, no, we want to save the entire Great Salt Lake. The North Arm is a critical wetland habitat for birds, including the American white pelican. There's actually an island in the North Arm where 20% of the global population of the American white pelican rely on for nesting and rearing their young.
Wow.
And when the water drops, it creates a land bridge, and then the island is no longer safe from predators for this bird to nest their young. And so we were fighting against this bill. We don't want the state to dry up the North Arm. And it was a huge battle. And we did a lot of media. We did some social media. We actually post a Instagram video series every single Thursday, and this particular post got like 300,000 views.
Wow. And
I went up there and testified, and it was a huge battle, and we won. We got that language that added back into this bill and protected the North Arm from becoming dried up.
Wow.
So that was huge.
That's a huge win.
Yeah, it was really fun. And Utah Rivers Council, we're kind of a small group, but we're mighty. And, we work really, really hard to protect these ecosystems. And at that time, I was like feeling really demoralized by the state of the world. And then I realized, just the dedication, strategy, and ethical courage of a small group of people who are willing to speak out and to fight can do big things.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's good motivation right there, you know? Because, it feels like a lot of times people are too scared to speak out, or they just think their voice won't be heard, or,
Totally.
I'm just one person. What can I do against,
Yeah.
the government or whatever it may be? But that's a good little motivational message right there.
And that's what grassroots organizing is. And I'm an organizer. It's just that when our voices are isolated and separate, we don't have so much power. But when we come together under the same umbrella and make collective decisions, our voice becomes so much more powerful. And it's a fun thing to do. Yeah.
That's good. And it's nice that you enjoy what you do too, because it makes it that much easier, I guess. Maybe not the right word, but when things, you're getting despondent, things look depressing and you're not very optimistic, you can kind of buckle down and be like, no, this is something I actually believe in. And you can kind of find that inner strength to keep going, to keep fighting, and, eventually get that win.
Yeah, no, totally. I feel so grateful for my job. Yeah. It's really, really hard. And it's not like I'm happy 100% of the time, but I don't think your purpose in life is to be happy 100% of the time. It's to find meaning and purpose. And I think what we do is so purposeful. And I feel really grateful that I found Utah Rivers Council and that, our executive director gave me a chance and gave me a job. And yeah, we're learning new things every day and growing. And yeah, it's really fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean, that's, it's always nice meeting people who are passionate about what they do and, are true believers in their cause.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, what's something that the average Utahn can do to help with water conservation?
Yeah. So I was saying, I think if you want to make a personal behavior, consumptive change, I would say get rid of your lawn. Get rid of your lawn, guys. Oh my God, I hate grass. And I think that non-functional turf, which is grass that is just purely for aesthetical purposes, should be removed in Utah. Kentucky bluegrass has no business being in the second driest state in the country, and our outdoor watering actually has the biggest depletion rate. And so obviously we're a part of this water cycle, right? When we use water inside, there's not as much of a depletion rate, meaning that water isn't leaving the watershed. It's kind of going back into our drains, and they actually filter that water and then put it back into the Great Salt Lake. And so there's a little bit of depletion along the way, but the water we put on our grass has a really high depletion rate. So that water is leaving the watershed more than the water we use inside. So a lot of people are take shorter showers, turn the faucet off when you brush your teeth. I think those are good things, but if you really want to change your water footprint, get rid of your lawn and put xeriscaping, especially if it's lawn that you're not using. So think the strip of grass between your sidewalk and the street. That could be native plants, if your kids play in your grass, I think that's awesome. I go to Sugar House Park all the time and enjoy that grass. I'm not saying we should get rid of all of that. But yeah, get rid of your grass. And if you want to do something to contribute to justice-based, long-term resilient change, I would get more involved in politics, local politics. So who's your city council member? Do you know who they are and what policies they stand for? Who is your senator? Who is your Utah representative? And get to know them. They're really not that scary of people, and I promise they don't know more than you do. They're just people who are, public servants, and they're trying to, most of them are trying to make this state a better place, and they need to hear from you. And so getting engaged with that is awesome. Every session we do lobby open houses where we teach people how to lobby, and we get them up to the State House and we tell them about some of the bills we're advocating for or against, and people get to come up and meet their representative and their senator. And every single time we do it, people leave and they're like, Alta, that was insane. I had no idea that I was capable of just doing something like that, because it just seems so politics sometimes just seems so far away and so out of touch. It's how could I even start to get engaged with that? But it can be really empowering, especially if you're someone who's really overwhelmed by the state of the global environmental crisis. Getting engaged in politics, even at a local level, can be really, really empowering and something I would highly encourage everyone to do.
Awesome. That's great. And it's like, that's how you make your voice heard, you know? Go to your city council meeting, like, you know, voice your concerns about that sort of thing. Go to, like, how often do you do these lobbying?
We do like 3 a session. Yeah, the legislative session starts like end of January and it goes towards the beginning of March, which is way too short, but we usually do them around then.
Okay.
Yeah.
If people wanted to find information about going to these lobbying sessions or something like that, where would be the best place for them to get that information?
Yeah. I would say follow us on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook. We put out a lot of our calls to action and some of our events there, or you can sign up for our email alerts via our website at utahrivers.org.
Awesome. Great. And yeah, like, it's nice social media has given people a lot of access to, you know, these sort of things, these sort of causes and stuff. But if like your average Utahn wanted to get more involved or wanted to just help the Utah Rivers Council, what would be the best way to go about doing that?
You can volunteer with us. I manage our volunteer programs, and I like connecting people to projects that match their skills and interests. And so we have like a software engineer who used to work for NASA who just comes in and helps me with data, like random things with data. Like we have people who are like, you know, videographers who go out and capture B-roll for us and just send us B-roll for Instagram. We have such a huge range of volunteers with so many different skills and interests who come in and volunteer. That's if you have a lot of time. If you just want to sign up for our action alerts, our email list we send out every other Friday, and it helps people get connected to the right actions at the right time so that we can leverage this collective power to implement change. And so like organizing is when you bring people into a cause. So like if I got your email and your contact information and sent you an email every single week, that's like organizing. Mobilizing is when we get that group of people to do something. So like if I could have like 100 people email one legislator, one message, that will get him to change his mind, he or she to change his mind. So signing up for our email alerts is a great way to be a part of those mobilizations. So like contact your city council member about this policy and tell them you support it or tell them you don't support it. And that way we can create change collectively. So did that answer your question?
Yeah. No, that's great. Have you found that there's, I mean, hopefully there's been more interest, like especially as the state has grown, I'm assuming water usage has grown or water demand has grown with the population increase. But at the same time, have you found that there's an increased like interest in protecting the water? Like, has it kind of gone up? Like, oh my gosh, what's that word? Like, is there like corresponding? Like, is like water demand has grown? Have you all seen a growing? Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, I understand
this all.
Yeah.
Excuse me, but yeah, it's like water demand has grown. Have you seen like an increase in water conservation?
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to push back on the fact that water demand is increasing.
Oh.
Water demand in Utah isn't increasing. It's actually decreasing.
Really?
Yeah. So, like I said, the majority of our water in Utah is being used by agriculture. Ag land, especially when we're like flood irrigating alfalfa, uses way more water than like urban land does. Like, because of, you know, we have a lot less like grass and plants, and people use a lot less water per acre than like a farmer uses per acre. And in Utah, ag land is actually declining. Like, ag land is in decline. And so because of that, a lot of water is being freed up. Oh. But, like, at least here, like, in Riverton, there's a lot of, like, ditches and canals running through, like, towns and cities. That's, like, untreated secondary water that used to be from ag that wasn't converted over to municipal water.
Interesting.
And so Utah has some of the biggest secondary water canal systems throughout the state in this entire country. And so that's actually another one of our 4200 project policies, is to convert secondary water over to municipal and then incentivizing conservation through tiered water pricing. But yeah, so like our demand is actually decreasing if we can actually convert like freed up ag water over to municipal water, which is like that's kind of a common misconception, is that our water demand is increasing because our population is increasing. But as we pave farmland for urban sprawl, our water supply is actually growing, which is pretty interesting. But I do think that water conservation is becoming a bigger priority for Utahns because the Great Salt Lake crisis is so visual. You know, it's so in your face. It's so like, oh, we're going to be choking on toxic dust for generations, and it's going to cost how much to mitigate that dust? And so I think people are starting to like really realize like, whoa, yeah, water is an issue for Utah, and we need to treat water like it's scarce, because it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, you know, especially having winters like this last one, it's kind of like a in your face kind of thing. Like, oh, we actually are having like drought issues, you know, and you see like a lot of cities and stuff like, don't water your lawns until after Mother's Day or whatever, you know, like that sort of stuff. And it's just like, yeah, I definitely think while it sucked that the winter was as dry as it is, it has been a pretty big wake up call for a lot of people that I know, you know, especially like talk about it with like my wife or whatever, like it's a real concern.
Yeah.
Especially like people like trying to like live here, you know, like you said, you want to live in northern Utah for a long time, or people like want to raise families or like move here and that sort of thing. It's something that has to, you know, action has to be taken if it's going to remain a place where people not only want to live, but can live.
Yeah, totally. Right now, Utah Rivers Council is actually offering subsidized rain barrels to a bunch of different cities. And so trying to urge residents to capture the rain and use it for watering their lawns instead of turning on their sprinklers. So that's a program that people can get involved in right now to help conserve water, because lowest snowpack on record, really scary, not great feeling, especially, well, not especially, but for us skiers, it's kind of a sad year.
Yeah. I know a lot of my friends that ski and snowboard were pretty bummed about this ski season.
Yeah, it sucked. Whatever.
It sucked. Whatever. But I mean, that's just like kind of one of the secondary effects, you know, like if the Great Salt Lake dries up, then we're not going to have the ski season. There's an entire like industry, you know, greatest snow on earth. Like we're gonna have to change the state slogan, like, or state, you know, like we're not gonna have any snow. It's gonna look like this year after year after year. And that's depressing. That's to say the least.
To say the least.
But yeah, I mean, that's like one of the big reasons that like we want to, you know, partner with you guys, Utah River Council, for our Pickle for a Cause, is like, this is something we believe in. Like we all just kind of put forth ideas, right? Because we do the Pickle for a Cause every year. This is our second year. So, you know, second annual Pickle for a Cause. But everyone on the team put forth like a different organization, and then we all voted. And we chose the Utah Rivers Council because, I mean, this is a cause that's important to us. Most of us, like, grew up in Utah, and so, you know, we're familiar with it, and it's something that demands some urgency. And so, I mean, that's why we want to reach out, and we're stoked that you guys want to team up with us for this. And so, do you have any idea of what we can expect from you guys at the Pickle for a Cause? Do you know?
Oh, like...
Is this a spoiler? Or do you not?
I think this is a spoiler.
Oh, I don't know.
Like what we're gonna do there?
Yeah.
Are we like playing pickleball?
I mean, if you want to. I don't know if you guys are gonna like put forth a team. But I know like
pickleball. I'm gonna lose.
That's fine. It's for the cause. Even if you lose, it's for the cause.
Yeah.
But I know, like, I was talking with Joe before he left. And yeah, it sounds like you guys are gonna have a pretty sizable presence there, because like I think we talked about like some sort of interactive, like some sort of like interactive way, like to help people kind of get like hands-on, like an object lesson almost.
Okay.
Like I don't know. We were throwing out like some fake ideas.
Okay,
you just blast people with the sandblaster while they're playing like pickleball is like a, you know.
Yeah, we'll have to think of a way. The way we table right now is kind of boring, so we need to come up with something more interactive. Maybe we'll bring a rain barrel.
There you go.
Bob for apples in the rain barrel.
That's a good idea. Bob for apples in the rain. That'd be fun. I don't think I've bobbed for apples in way too long.
Me too.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, but I'm not sure what we have planned. I think Joe is probably scheming, cooking something up.
Okay.
He's in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sweet. Yeah, yeah, we're excited to be partnering with you guys. And
Yeah, we're excited too. It's really cool.
well, I guess to wrap it up, what's one thing that gives you hope moving forward?
Good question. I said that every time you asked a question, but
I hope they're good questions. I hope they're not boring questions.
I think what gives me hope and what really inspires me to continue my work is the efforts of past activists who kind of paved the way for me to be able to do what I'm doing. You know, I don't think that the world is as good as it is just by chance. I think people made a conscious decision to become an active agent in history and to write a new future. And I think of like the suffragettes in England who fought for women's rights, and many of them like laid down their lives for, you know, for women to have the right to vote, to have the right to own property, to get an education. And now I have a college degree and, you know, I have the right to vote and own property. And I don't think that happened just naturally. I think it happened because people fought. And they fought their whole lives. And a lot of people like created change that they never got to see. And so I think that's what gives me hope is the past and past successes of people who came before me, who fought for a better future, who fought for equity and potentially died never seeing the impacts of the work that they did. That gives me a lot of hope. And seeing that Utah Rivers Council does take wins, like they might be small in the huge scheme of things, but a lot of small wins end up into something big. And sometimes, you know, social change is like a domino. You know, you push one domino and then like you never know what down the future is going to happen because of the actions that you took. And, you know, hope is it's not prognostic. Like, it's not something that you, like, go to the doctor's office for and say, like, please give me hope. Is it possible?
Yeah.
You know, hope is a practice, you know. You got to, like, practice having hope for a better future, because without hope, like, I couldn't do any of this at all. I wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
So.
That's good. I like that. It's not just something you just are, like, passively sitting there doing. You're, like, have hope, and so you're going out and actively trying to make it happen. You know, you're planting seeds for a tree you might never, you know, really see fully develop or get fruit from, you know. And I don't know, I think that's something we need more of, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there anything about the Utah Rivers Council that we didn't talk about that you'd like to share before we go?
I don't think so. Thank you guys for giving us a platform and putting on this event for us. Nothing that we do would be successful in isolation. It's because of our connection to like other groups and businesses and people and communities that what we do is even possible. So thank you guys so much. This is an awesome opportunity.
Of course. And we're happy to do it, you know.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's something we believe in, and like that's why we do, you know, the Pickle for a Cause. We're trying to give back and, you know, do something positive with our platform, with our time, with our money. And so yeah, that's why we want to do it. We're trying to, you know, talk the talk and walk the walk. Like Modo's whole thing is talk less, do more. And, you know, this is how we're doing more, you know, or at least we're trying, which, you know, you just got to try, right? You just got to take a couple steps, and then next thing you know, you're running. Yeah. But yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you very much for
talk less, do more.
Talk less, do more. You heard it here. But yeah, Pickle for a Cause, May 29th. So if you want to come out and support Utah Rivers Council, wonderful partners in this, and, you know, come play pickleball, eat some good food. Will you be there?
I'll be there.
Alta will be there. So if you want to come, you know, talk with Alta about the issues, learn about learn about water, potentially bob for apples in a water bucket, you know, play some pickleball, mix it up with some good people.
Yeah.
Make a good change. We'll be there.
Cool. I'm excited for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Cool.
It's been a pleasure.
Oh, you finished yours?
No, I still got some. You can't toast with an empty glass.
This is awesome.
It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah. Thanks for having us. This is super exciting. My first podcast.
Oh, mine too. So,
good job.